job on the offensive end. Halpert up ahead for Leifer. Leifer open for the alley-oop for Terrell. Oh my goodness!
White shirts, a lot of things going on, so we were very excited to do that. But we have here, right, this is the star of this evening. We can't be more excited. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam. Myself, Natan, and Oren here, and we can't wait to get into your story, but tell us how you're doing.
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing great tonight. It's been a good day, thank God, and I'm just happy to be here and everything.
Awesome. It's been a fantastic, I would say it's been a fantastic day here in the Northeast. Some storms, some power outages, some fun stuff. But literally, that's the worst of our worries. Things are going well. God is great. So it's really a wonderful thing to talk about. I just got introduced to your story yesterday, and you've been so gracious to come and join us here. Can you tell us what this is like? This I don't even know if this is new for you. Like you're this maybe has something going on all season, or did it somehow hit some sort of point where people started like noticing what was going on? Because obviously we're deep into the football season.
Yeah, absolutely. So officially I was actually brought on halfway through the season, because there is kind of a little bit of an interesting twist to the walk-on story that maybe we'll discuss later in the podcast. But so far, what happened was I had to make sure my school was NCAA certified. And there was a couple of factors that made me want to push off kind of announcing this. I wanted to wait till I was like in full uniform for a game. And because I'd come into the middle of the season and I was still, getting the ropes during practice, I wanted to actually make sure that I started contributing more in practice before I made this announcement, because I just wanted it to be, fair to my teammates and just everyone. Because, I never played football before. Until this is my first time playing like organized football. And all my teammates try really hard during practice. And I understand that I'm getting this publicity because of the story and, and the uniqueness of the story. But, I just wanted to give some courtesy to my teammates and, try to contribute more during practice before I came out with the full story. And, Saturday night when that was actually my first time in full uniform. That was when, I got on ESPN during the game with the yarmulke, they're celebrating the video that's been shared everywhere. And that, at that point, I was like, I'm here. I'm finally in the full uniform and everything. I think this is a good time to announce it. And obviously, it's at the end of the season, so that's kind of how it's been. So it's kind of been like a little bit of a back and forth since mid-October when I actually was put on the team till now, or till a couple of days ago when the whole thing was announced.
That's unreal. I can't wait to dig into this. We really love to dig into this. Just you have a sense. Obviously, we've been we came together as a bunch of just friends in the Jewish sports world. Following Yeshiva University Max basketball, and one of those reasons was because there was to the outside world there was this player who was defying what Jews should be doing, and now we're sort of seeing this in a lot of different places. I know I mentioned on Twitter many years ago, and it's a story that I still need to get details on, but my uncle, who grew up, more conservative and now is, very Chabad and for many, many years, but he went down south, not, to a college in Alabama, and he was a running back, and, Jews back in the, 50s, 60s, it wasn't, it was a different world down there. And then just to hear this, it's mind-boggling sort of what's out there, but like the beauty is in the story, right? And the beauty is in your experience. So tell us about that. Like you're telling everyone here, like, where are you from? Like, where did you grow up? And you just said, which is just like I can't get around my head around. It's like I never played. Like we're talking about Texas A&M here. We're not talking about like you're playing somewhere else. Like this is amazing. You didn't play football. Right. So talk to me about like growing up. Where did you grow up? What's that story like?
Yeah.
And what are some of those highlights?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Center City, Philadelphia. Pretty much grew up on the border of South Philly and Center City. And I lived my entire life in the city. I was one of 2 kids, I believe, that were from growing up in the community, and then the other from kids were obviously my rabbi's kids, who are great friends. I've still talked to them to this day, and they're all amazing. And the other kid and I are also great friends. But it was a very, very unique type of community that I grew up in. And I attended Poets Day School in Cherry Hill from K through 8, and then I went to Kohelet Yeshiva High School in Marion Station for high school years. So that was my complete education period. And then randomly in the middle, I made a very pivotal life choice to just pack up essentially my life and move down to College Station, Texas, and just pretty much start or continue my life here, start a new chapter here. And that's pretty much just how it's been so far. I never went to like sleepaway camp or anything like that as a child. So this was, my first time just being completely away from the family and just trial by fire, pretty much.
And what's that like? So what's it been like for you? What's been the hardest part, right? Like some of those challenges of making that adjustment, even before this, right? Like you talk about this, that part didn't happen until October, but you were down there well before that, right? You're down there for at least since the start of the year. Yeah.
So I've been living here since last year.
Oh, wow.
So it's obviously been a little bit easier coming back. I think that, it's just I love my family and they're amazing. And I think that it's good for me though to go out and, come out and try to make something myself, kind of on my own, sort of say, like, not to say that I don't have help and amazing people around me, and like the Chabad community, the Jewish community here are just absolutely amazing. Like, but I think that, living on my own, having to cook for myself, having to, deal when I wake up, with everything, all that stuff that comes with independence, I think is very important in developing in me, who I am as a character or as a person. So it's been, Baruch Hashem, it's been a very, very interesting time here. I'm very grateful for it. Again, a lot of maybe the struggles in the beginning were really just getting my feet out. Obviously, I had to learn how to cook, had to learn how to do my laundry, how to, just basic things. And obviously, again, like I miss my family, but my friends that are not one person. I did not have like one friend coming in here. And Baruch Hashem, I have the whole community now, but all those people from high school, I don't really get to see them a lot aside from my breaks. And if we had gone to a bowl game, which, God willing, next year we'll be competing for a national championship. But had we gone to a bowl game, I might have not really been down for that much. But I love what I can do and be a part of it. So sacrifices have to be made, and God willing, my family will be able to come down and watch me play soon.
That's awesome. So talk to us about I've heard the number was chosen for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the number, the 39?
Yeah, absolutely. So before they really had put me onto the team, or they hadn't even mentioned anything to me, I was already thinking about what I would want as my number. And in my mind, I was like, I don't play on Shabbos. I'm not going to play on Shabbos. And I think what I had been thinking was I should do 39 because of the 39 malachot, and it should serve as a reminder to me of who I am and my commitment to Hashem, to God, and I should wear that with me in a sport that plays predominantly on Saturdays. So that's why I chose 39 initially. And then I was going back and forth with my friends because someone said it should be 18 or a multiple of 18. So at the time of when we were going in, I was still having this conflict. And I was like, fine, let me see what they have. And the only one actually available on offense, I guess the only one really available was 39, because you can have someone on defense wear the same number as someone on offense because they're not on the field at the same time. But 39 was the one that was available on offense. And I guess that's what it was supposed to be. And I'm happy that it is, because that's my number now.
Absolutely. Oren, what are you curious about? I got so much that's jumping out at me here.
Well, Sam, first off, thanks for coming on. It's really, I read a lot about unique stories that are happening in the Jewish world, and this one I think is at the very top. Obviously, I'm sure you're no stranger to other Orthodox Jewish athletes who are trying to break barriers. We see that with Ryan Terrell, the Motor City Cruise customized kippahs are taking off. Can we expect a Texas A&M Aggies customized keepa with your name on the back? Are you in talks with any deals about that happening?
I'm actually, if I'm not entirely, I haven't been in communication too much about with because I just set up my NIL portal and everything like that yesterday. I haven't really been in too much communication with everyone because everything just broke yesterday. I'm sure that in the future that, and God willing, that there will be some sort of deal or partnership that's coming forth. Within licensing, I would obviously have to talk to the school and stuff like that, because I know that Clipped has their licensing with the NBA and their affiliate organizations. However, I do not, and they have licensing with deals with the MLB. Obviously, college football is just a completely different world to have licensing in. So I'm sure we can get something worked out, because I'm not sure much of A&M is really, the A&M on their side has heard the story too much. But at some point, I would talk to them about something. I can't really reveal too much of obviously how the process goes, just due to some policy type things. I'm sure I don't want to be breaking any NIL rules.
Yeah, listen, I was there. I signed all the documents. I saw even back in the the 90s and early 2000s. The athlete piece was always a lot of talk about gambling mostly, but there's a lot of letters that we had to sign just to even to play D3. I can imagine like in a D1 football program.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, like the way it is. Like I signed up for the NIL portal yesterday, and they have a deal with Fanatics on jersey, on customizable jerseys. You can get players' jerseys, and players do get a cut of the jerseys. So,
how surreal does this all feel to you? I mean, did you ever envision something like this happening in your life?
Well, so the thing is, when it first happened, it was obviously crazy because it's been something I was training for at that point, it was pretty much almost a year. And I've been obviously training very hard. I think I was averaging about 4 to 5 hours a day of just training, and then whatever else to educate myself on the sport of football. And right as
how did it, like, I'm just like, I'm still like, can we walk back half a step and like get like, how did this even like, when did this enter your mind?
Right. Where was the starting point?
Like, where you didn't play football, right? Like even like players who are on college teams to not play football, right? Sometimes it's like you come from a different place and they didn't have football. Like, why did it enter your head to like, because everybody in Texas loves football? Like, what happened? Like, how did you get into this mindset?
So it's a very interesting thing that happened, because growing up, I didn't really watch football or college football that much. And the strange thing was, though, even though I knew what it was, I just didn't really watch it that much. But I always, for some reason, I think since I don't remember what age it started, but I remember just like sitting in bed watching TV, and I was like, had this weird thought in the back of my mind, is like, my life wouldn't be complete if I hadn't played college football. And it's obviously just like a strange thing. And those types of feelings you'll get. Sometimes they'll be a little bit more sedated and they'll go away for a little bit periods of time and different things like that. But I always love the culture that football brings to places, that brings to schools. I find that the people that I met, at least through my journey in football, have been, all have a faith in God. And I find that just the cultures that have football at the center of the cultures, they do a lot. How to say, there's a lot of faith in there. And that was something that I really wanted when I was going to pick a school, and I ended up picking A&M. That wasn't the only reason, but I did want a big football school. So going back to why I ended up, doing this, I had this thought in the back of my mind for a while, and I got to A&M, and I went to our first game, which was against Kent State. It happened to fall out that the end of the game was after Shabbos, so I came at like the last after the half, and because my friend had got me a ticket, and I'm just standing there and I'm looking at it. It happened to be front row, which was pretty nice. But I was standing there looking at the players, and I was like, the thought just started popping up. I was like, you know what, I can do this. Like I can do this. Like, I should be doing this. And officially on October, I think 16th, I had been on a trip with my Chabad in New York on Pagisha, and I was like, I was like, I'm gonna go full force with this, and that was just it. And I mean, there were other factors. I did have this feeling that I had to play, and I always did love football. But I realized this, and I think that it's very important and central to the journey. And what I've been trying to do is that there's kind of this saying that there's got to be a Rebbe for every generation, amongst, and I'm sure that y'all are familiar with it. And that is just someone's got to be able to relate to people. And in a place like this, obviously the lifeblood is football for many of the students and many of the Jewish students as well. And I think that you have to be able to come from a place that you want to influence people positively. You have to earn the right to be, to influence. And that's something that I've always been passionate about, is just, spreading Yiddishkeit and being close with Hashem and journeys about faith and everything like that. So a lot of this has been just, a lot of it really pushing me is because I want to inspire my fellow Jewish kids to, keep on going forth in sports. I want to inspire people, believe in Hashem and know everything's possible with Hashem. And even on a broader level, I want to inspire people to live the lives that you always wanted to live, and that nothing, if you believe in Hashem and you believe that you can do it, nothing is going to hold you back in life. And unfortunately, a lot of people have their motivation or their drive kind of stripped away from them when they enter high school, right? When they enter college, and people just try to settle into almost like average lives. And and we all have special abilities that Hashem has given us. And I think that it's up to everyone to utilize those abilities to ultimately bring the light to bring light to the world, and just make everyone make the world a better place and inspire people.
I mean, listen, we need one of those places that needs more light. And by the way, Oren, to be 20 again and be able to look at a football game and say, oh, I want to go do that, right? And actually have the ability to it's like,
look, I didn't play college football. My life feels incomplete.
Exactly right. Like I wish I had the fortitude to be able to say those things. But I really right, the part where it really gets is sort of the example, right? And being able to recognize, what you're doing and how you're leading by example is just tremendous. I hope we didn't lose you for a second here. We'll freeze and wait just for to see if we get back here. Hopefully we got you.
Sorry, yeah, I'm back.
It's incredible. I think one of the things is and people just outside. Can you tell us a little bit about? I love that you talked about faith-based, right? Because that is a huge, and it's not just Texas. Again, there are parts of this country that are obviously huge. Faith is the core of where they are. College campuses these days, though, right, have been a little bit scary for Jews. In the past year and a half, when I worked with Jewish organization that I don't think is on AM or maybe on AM, but we're at Texas Austin with Olami and other organizations that are working with Jewish youth, right? So a lot of it's a very scary place to be at some points in time. You're bringing that light, right? And it's a place that needs light. How has that been? How have your teammates been receiving you? How has that part of the process, sort of college life, gone? And obviously you say it's sort of new since the announcement, and there may be more attention of all kinds. So talk a little bit about that and what you're hoping.
Let me tell you, I mean, Texas A&M, since I've been here, has been amazing. I mean, the people here have been amazing. Everyone is, super friendly, super understanding about, Yiddishkeit, that I have to take off for Chagim, that I have to, take off a class for Chagim, that I have to take off for practice for Chagim. Despite, I'm one of maybe 4 or 5 from Jews on the campus. So, and there's a campus of 70,000 people.
Yep.
But in that respect, in the academic respect, everyone's been amazing and very respective. In the athletics respect, they've been just absolutely amazing. I mean, I can't even express how amazing Texas A&M has been in this process, because there hasn't been really, again, there's not really much of a precedent for what to do when you have a from guy coming to play college football. And I mean, Texas A&M has just been absolutely amazing. They've accommodated me on, Shabbat. I don't go to games that are so when they're early on Shabbat, I don't go to games. And then if we have a game that is after Shabbat, what I do is I have Sforim in my locker. I keep Gemara and Tanakh and the Mesidder in my locker. And, I walk there, and then we have a player's lounge, which is away from the locker room. So obviously you can learn in there. So I just learn until Shabbos is over, and then I'll go suit up and then I'll go out. And the team they've been completely fine with it. They've been amazing. When I first came on the team, they put me on the week of Yom Kippur, and I couldn't come to the first couple of practices because it was Yom Kippur, and they completely understood. And I mean, to the point, like they've been Baruch Hashem so amazing about it, that to the point that we have a banquet coming up this Sunday. It's the end of the year football banquet. And I told them, I was like, listen, I'm bringing 4 people. You guys don't have to factor us into the catering because, we can't eat anything. And they're like, no, we're just going to get you kosher food. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, we had a Thanksgiving dinner at the coaches' houses last Wednesday night. And we had to go to it, obviously, but I mean, the coaches are great. Like the coaches have been absolutely amazing. And I told them, I was like, yeah, I just don't want it. I don't want to offend anyone. I just won't be able to eat anything. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I explained kosher to them. And they're like, no, we'll get you something. And they ended up like calling my Chabad. The Chabad got delivered it to the coach's house. And I had dinner. And they've just been amazing with it. My teammates have been just incredible. Like a lot of them are pretty much like brothers to me at this point. The open arms that they brought me in with and just accepted me and brought me into this team has just been amazing. And I love A&M. I love the football team, and I really want to do my best to especially help the team succeed. But it's just just everybody in that staff has just been, the associate director, like everyone in that staff has just been absolutely amazing. Just everyone in the building, to be honest.
That's unbelievable to hear. Really unbelievable to hear. And I'll tell you, like the way you talked about it reminds me of, again, when you work like I do and many people do in right, in sort of a secular world, right, and sort of representing and have the yarmulke and Jewish. A lot of times my coworkers would be like, hey dude, it's Friday, you got to get out of here, right? It's like they were like, once they know what the rules are, they're like the ones they're like making sure, like they're putting like the fence around just to make sure like I don't even come close to it. It's like, God, you can't stay for this call, or we're going out to this restaurant. Like, so it's really great to see that embrace. I think you're gonna jump in here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a college guidance counselor by profession, so definitely I'm gonna try to sell Texas A&M as much as possible for my next meeting with a student. In my mind, Sam, I think you already cleared a huge hurdle, but I want to ask you, what are the steps already for next season? Is the goal to get as many SEC games as possible not scheduled on Shabbat?
Well, again, that's up to them. They actually don't have really any control over it. This is a purely network issue. The networks tell them about 10 to 14 days in advance, but the school doesn't have any power in when the games are scheduled. So obviously this season I was very fortunate. We had a Miami game where that started pretty much right after Shabbat ended. We had our game against Alabama, which was at Alabama. Shabbat ended before the game started. The game we had at South Carolina, also game ended before Shabbat started, before the game ended. Then we had, then we had Ole Miss. Ole Miss, I was present in that game, not in full uniform, but I was present at that game. That game, Shabbat ended half an hour after the game started, or about an hour, 45 minutes after the game started. So I was chilling in the lounge, just learning until it was time to run out my own for that one. And then this week we played LSU. The game was completely after Shabbat. So that's 6 games. And then we played Arkansas at a neutral site, and Arkansas, half the game was after Shabbat. And then bowl games can fall out during the week. Like some of them, depends on when New Year's falls out, because that's when a lot of them are scheduled by.
It's on a Sunday.
The truth is the network aspect has actually created so many more opportunities for late games, right? Because they want these primetime audiences, right? They even games that move up to Thursday night and other nights that are during the week. It actually has given, we've seen more opportunities. And if we take for a second the Jewish part off, right, or at least combined to the experience, talk about that talk about that stadium, the LSU game. That place seemed like it was going nuts. Nobody remembered what the record was. It didn't matter. What was that? What was still you no, I'm just used to this. Tell me about what that feeling was, because the video seemed to say, no, I'm into it. This is
no, that was that it's an electric environment. Kyle Field is one of the largest stadiums in college football. I think it's the 4th or the 5th or something like that. It seats about 105,000 people. So it's amazing. The 12th man, like the fans, yeah, I was up there at some point. So like I know like the fans are absolutely amazing. I mean, once the game was over, obviously the field got rushed, which, you know, that
is that scary? Like I'm saying, like what like I don't know. I feel like that's, I guess, I don't know, being in Grand Central Station during rush hour, like maybe feels a little bit like that, but like what does it feel like?
Yeah. I mean, it was an amazing feeling because, my teammates, we've been, working hard during the season, and I was just so happy for everyone, because I knew I had a feeling that we were going to win this game the entire week. And I was just so happy for my teammates, obviously the seniors that got to go out and with a final win, like a win like that where the team, people rush the field. It's not such a common occurrence. The last time it happened was when we beat Alabama last year. And just, going out when you're in the uniform, it's a little bit different because you're going out to the field and people are like, oh, this guy's a player. I want to take pictures with him, or I want to ask him for gloves, or I want to try to buy his helmet off of him. But either way, like I love taking the pictures with the fans. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. 12th man has to be probably one of the best, actually no, the best fan base in the world. I mean, absolutely amazing and just committed. I mean, we had, even after we had lost games, they would just come out in the masses. People like camp out for 3 days beforehand to get tickets. And it's just amazing. I mean, my favorite part obviously is taking the pictures with the little guys because, they're always going to hold that moment and they're always going to remember that moment. And, it's always just a heartwarming thing for me. But I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. Just being in that stadium, it's so electric. The people around you and behind you and just everyone getting hyped up. It's just, I mean, mind-boggling.
You guys acted as if you won the national championship because, you played spoiler. You knocked LSU out of a playoff conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, in my philosophy, you got to act like you've already done it to do it. So, God willing, next year we will be in the national champion conversation. So
yeah, so I know we have a few minutes left. We really appreciate your time and being able to share. We have a question here. And I think we know the answer here. And you talk about this place and what it's meant to you. Someone was asking on the chat here if you would transfer to a place like the MAC or somewhere else where they where the games are basically all right on weeknights and there aren't on weekends. It sounds like you're in love with this place, right? And it just means the world.
I have to be honest. Like I wouldn't transfer. Texas A&M has been amazing and so gracious to me. And like I said, the head coach brought me on to the team. I love this team. I love this school. I mean, I chose the school for the traditions, and I want to win a national championship for the school. Like this is my home. They treated me amazingly, and I'll always be an Aggie. So
that's amazing. So like to be technical about it again with whatever you could talk about, like how did was there a tryout? Was there like how did this actually happen? Like really, like how did it happen? And what's next? Right? Like as the season's over, are you going to just be again still 5 hours a day workout? Like the same routine? Like this is going, but like how did it actually happen? Like was there a open tryout? Someone see you running to catch a class and was like, we got to get this dude. He ran to catch that class. He knocked over 3 people on the way. We got to get him out here for this team.
So do y'all want to hear the full story?
Oh my God, please.
Yes. So October of last year, I had decided, obviously, to walk on, and I had to figure that out because in my mind, I'm a schemer. So like I'm like, okay, how do I break this down do I get this every step of the way of things that I have to be doing to get here? And many people don't really know this, but Texas A&M actually has a rule that you must have played high school football to walk on. However, I had found it out a little bit later. So I started trying out, and I was like, because the place I had seen it previously was in an old walk-on requirement. So I was like, I don't even know if it's legit anymore. So I just figured, I'm going to start training. I'm going to do everything I can to make myself the most physically and mentally prepared to play this game. And I started practicing on this field. And it had been about a month, so I'm in November right now, and I wanted to go actually watch the tryouts in the spring. I wasn't eligible to try out because I was not a full student of Texas A&M at that point, Baruch Hashem, I obviously am now. But I want to know what the tryouts are like, what I have to prepare for. And the people I called, the people I emailed, they were like, listen, we're not really sure we can do that. The woman I called said, here's an email of this guy. You email him, and maybe he might, maybe he'll change it. Maybe he'll allow you to. Long story short, the guy never responded, and he ended up going to work for another school. So I wasn't getting any responses, and I was like, I had somehow stumbled across the head coach's radio show on YouTube, and it's a live radio show at like a barbecue place. So like, I broke out the baseball cap, and I went over there with like a little. I wrote the question down on a piece of paper. It says, "What do you look for in a walk-on?" And I handed it to the guy who was doing the radio show, and I said, can you ask this question? He's like, of course. So I sat down. Interestingly enough, the only place to sit left was a place that was reserved for Texas A&M athletics. So that's where I sat at that radio show. And
this is amazing.
During the radio show, they obviously asked the question. Coach Fisher gave a great 3-minute response to it. It was pretty good response. And I was like one of the few students there. It was mostly adults and people with kids and stuff like that. So it was me, and there was some students who wanted him to sign some things, and I had my yarmulke, and I was like, I'm just gonna have him sign my yarmulke. So he signed my yarmulke. It's over there. And then I also had a piece of paper, and I had this piece of paper. It says what was it? Pull it out. I carried it. I read this piece of paper. I read it every night before I went to bed, and every day when I woke up, and when I was working out. And I don't think anyone's actually heard what it says, but it says, and I wrote this in November of last year, I made it onto Texas A&M football this year. I became the first Orthodox Sabbath observant Jew to play college football. I, Sam Salz, play football for the Texas Aggies. And I gave this piece of paper to him, and I had him sign it. And he didn't know what was written on it. I still haven't told him. Probably tell him at some point, because I have a new piece of paper. And I had him sign that. I walked up to him and I told him, my name is Sam Salz. I'm the one who asked the question. I'm going to walk. I looked him in the eyes and I told him I'm going to walk on. And I think he said something along the lines of like, I would be honored or something like that. I'm not, it was a while ago, but I feel like that I do remember him saying that. So I had it signed. I walked back to my seat and I'm leaving. And right as I'm leaving, this random dude just asks if I could buy him dinner. And I was like, you know what, sure. I'll buy this random dude dinner. So I got this guy dinner, and he had his, and I went over to talk to the coach because we were the only people left in the place. And I asked if I could talk to him, and I told him a little bit more about myself. And then I go, so would it be possible for me to come watch the walk-on tryouts so I know what to try out for? And he was like, yeah, of course. And he gave me the card of, I don't know who it was at the time. One of the guys with him gave me their card and told me to email them about it. And that's what I did. So the next day, I emailed the guy, he responded to me. And great. Now I had that, and I continued training at this field, and I would do about 1.5 to 2 hours in the field. And then at this time it might have been short. At this time it was probably about 1 hour, and I would do about 2.5 to 3 hours in the gym. And I was training. I went back to Philadelphia for my winter break. I trained there. I came back after winter break.
You tell your parents, like, this is what I'm doing? It's like,
yeah, I told my parents.
And they were like, all right, go get it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they're absolutely, thank God, they've been amazing. Awesome. And very supportive. So when I came back, it was finally, he told me to email him back in the spring, or when we come back from break, because the tryouts were the 28th of January, and you had to go to mandatory meeting on the 21st. Obviously, I didn't go to the mandatory meeting because I wasn't trying out, but I emailed the guy beforehand, and I never got a response. So I just figured, you know what? I have to go to this tryout at least to see what it is and introduce myself to the staff. So I took my yarmulke, And I always like think about like that story with like Judah and Tamar, like where she takes the signet ring.
Got the sign. I got the sign, right?
And I show up to the facility for this tryout. They're checking people in. I was like, hey, I'm not here to try out. I'm here to watch the tryout though. And I said, I talked to the coach. He said I could watch the tryout. They're like, which coach? I said, the head coach, Coach Fisher. They're like, and then I was starting to pull out I was like, here, I have something. I have like I showed him the sign yarmulke, and like, all right, you can come in. And I went
Funny because you were the second person that day to give a signed yarmulke. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. So I watched the tryout, and I took note. I have that whole tryout written down in my notes from the warm up to like the whole tryout. And I introduced myself to the staff and everyone who was evaluating and everything like that. And that was it. The tryout was in Friday afternoon. I had about 3 hours to Shabbos after the tryout. So I'm leaving the tryout, and I noticed outside the practice field, I was like, wow, there's a really nice field here. It's a lot nicer than the one I've been practicing at. So I was like, I'm going to start practicing at this field. And so that's what happened. So I started coming out every day to practice on this field that's right outside of the practice facility. And in my mind, you have to believe that you are already doing it to do it. So I told the coach, when I came on, one of the coaches, I told him that, I believe I've been on this team for 9 months. I was just practicing on the other side of the field. And I would come out to this field and I'd do about 1.5 to 2.5 hours a day. Sometimes I come twice, and I eventually found out that I eventually timed it up so I would be practicing at the same time when the team was practicing. And I would practice there every day. Sometimes it would be longer, honestly. And what happened was I was doing a lot of field work and things like that, but I had kind of injured my hamstring, and because of that, I wasn't able to run super fast. But one day, while I was on this field, a quarterback, one of the walk-on quarterbacks, came outside and threw the ball to me a little bit, and I couldn't catch anything because I couldn't run fast enough to catch him. And especially when you're running a go route, which is just straight. I couldn't run because my hamstring was messed up, and I was like, well, I have no one to throw to me, and I'm sitting in my car, and I was like, I have to be able to catch. Like I can't, I can make it. I called my dad. I was like I'm a little bit, a little bit worried if I'm pretty sure I'll make the team, but I had, God forbid, the other thing happens if I can't catch. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I prayed to Hashem about it. The next day I was at the field, and my friend Alex, who I met at Chabad, happened to be walking by to go to a baseball game. And I ended up telling him, because I was pretty secretive about this whole process while it was going on. Not many people knew about it. I really told only people that I had a feeling would believe in me. So I didn't tell anyone who would have a negative opinion of it, because I just didn't want that to be put out there. Because there are people like that, but you don't want any sort of negative energy towards that. You don't want to accept any of that. So I had told my friend Alex about this plan. He was like, well, if you want, I can throw with you. And I was like, all right, great. I got what I prayed for. So Alex and I would go out to the field, and we'd throw 2 or 3 times a week together. And, I started getting pretty decent at catching. And while we were doing this, coaches and players would start noticing. So, they would be leading practice, and they'd be like cheering me on, and like people would honk like when they saw me like catching stuff. And one day I had been walking out, and some of the coaches were leaving, and they said, what are you doing? They said, are you trying to walk on? And I said, I am. And they're like, the tryout was last month or last week or whatever it was. And I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm trying out in the fall. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna look for you. I was like, oh, that's great. I was very emotional after that moment, because I was like, when people see your efforts, it really hits home. And honestly, though, sometimes I would go out to that field twice a day. I would go out in the morning to do some stuff, and then I'd go out in the afternoon to do some other stuff. So after months of doing this, in about May, I remember this day very vividly, because I hadn't been having the greatest day. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to go out to the field. I'm going to stretch a little bit. just hang out. And one of the coaches came by and fist bumped me. And then my friend who was on the team, who had been kind of helping me with this process, he had walked out. And, because I was like praying to Hashem this whole day. I was like, Hashem, just please help me make this, like, please make this day better. And he tells me, like, they're talking about you in the locker room. And I was like, what? And my day like that just changed around. I went into Shabbos. I was like completely on a high. And that happened in about April or May. So then we were practicing. This was one of the last time my friend and I were practicing together because he was about to go home for break. I decided to stay an extra week so I could stay practicing at the field. And one of the guys who worked for the school's news walked out, and he had noticed me. He had asked what I was doing, and I told him my whole story. He's like, "That's amazing," and he handed me his card, and he's like, "Let's see what we can do." So I had gone home to Philadelphia, and I bought a football in Philadelphia. So I didn't really like what I used to do was when I did travel for like winter break, I would pack my little duffel bag and just have my football take up half the space. And then I decided I'm just going home. I'm just going to buy a football in Philadelphia. It'll be better. So that's what I did. And I walked around Philadelphia during my summer with this football every time, because I remember learning something interesting, like something about the power of presumption being if only you knew like the power of presumption or something. There's something along that sort. I had in my mind. I had learned. I don't know from where it was from. I don't remember. But I would walk around this football every day. I would walk to the gym. I'd have this football with me. There was a hill. I would sprint up the hill. I'd have the football with me. And people would start asking me in Philadelphia. They're like, "Well, where do you play football?" And I said, "Oh, I'm trying to walk on it." Or I never said I'm trying to. I said I'm walking on a Texas A&M. And they're like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. Let me know what happens." And one day I'm walking out, and the guy who cleans our building, great dude, he's actually a youth football coach, and he tells me about his friend who played in college, who trains people. I was like, great. So I started going to this guy. He runs a thing called Stable Academy. He's a really great coach. I remember my first day, he was telling my mom, he's like, most people would look at your son like he's crazy, because he just can't, he said he came to me saying that he wants to walk on to Texas A&M University football team. And the first thing that he said to me was like, they just signed the #1 recruiting class in the country, right? And I was like, I do. But he said, the way that I think he said something about like the way that he works is like, you might just make it happen or something like that. He said like, and his Chris, he was the coach, his faith. He's been just amazing. The faith that he's had in me, and just been overall just an amazing, guy who he's helped me train and things like that. And finally, I had this trainer, but then otherwise, so I would go to him like once a week. Otherwise, during the week, I needed a quarterback in Philadelphia. So I was training one day. I was doing hill sprints with the football, and it's outside of this building. One of the guys who lives in the building was asking me what I was doing, and I told him the whole story. And he's like, he's an older gentleman, not too old, but like, actually no, he's
old like us. Old like us.
No. He's definitely, he's very active and amazing for his age, which isn't that old. But just a great guy. Just a great guy.
We have our next guest, by the way. Coach Zucker has joined us, and I know the story is, as you sort of round this up, I think we need like 6 more shows to really dig through this. But as you sort of like get to really like how that clicked, just again, he's as Owen has told me, a molder of young men, and so just hearing some of this and hearing sort of the connection back to the Jewish is gonna be a great thing for him to hear as well, and we can't wait to hear and talk to him about his son Matan, who's on this the same journey.
Awesome. So
you're running up the hill. You see this guy.
Yeah. So this guy sees me. I think he was smoking or something like that. Like, you were just on a smoke break. So he saw me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm training to walk on to the Texas A&M football team." He's like, "Well, do you have hands?" I was like, "I handed him the ball." I was like, "Let's see." So we ran out to the field by the building, and he started throwing to me. I was like, wow, you know, this guy's like 50, and he's really good at throwing the football. And he's like, you know what, Sam, whenever you need someone to train with, I would love to. And so here it is, like a 19-year-old guy and a 50-year-old guy training to a kid who's never played football. It's a really interesting picture when you look at it. And he's just amazing. Like, he would help me out, and you know, him and his girlfriend, they really have faith in me, and I really appreciate that. And they were, you know, just so happy for me when I told them about making the team. And that's who I train with in Philadelphia as my quarterback. So I had decided to go back to College Station because I was like, I have to go to this field. I have to train on this field. This is just, I have to do it. And what happened was, in College Station in the summer, it gets to 107, 109 degrees. And I have never been sunburned in College Station on any of those days. I got sunburned in New Jersey on a 90-degree day though. But I was training on this field in this heat. And I think some of the players because they were in there, some of them were training, they were in there and they were looking at me like I was like completely insane. I mean, at some point, some dad and it brought his kid over because he wanted his kids to start playing football. The kid thought I was on the team, and then, you know, he just wanted me to give the kid advice. But like, I was out here on this field for hours, for like an hour or so, and then I would go in the morning. So I go like for an hour in the summer, because in the summer, because of the heat, there were a good couple of times I'm pretty sure I was this close to passing out. It was very, very close, but I had been there for about an hour, and then I would come back in the evening, because in the evening obviously it gets a little bit cooler to continue practicing. And the evening I would do about an hour and a half as well. So I did that. Then I flew back home, and I had been asking people at this time. I was like, well, what's going on? Are there going to be fall tryouts? Because sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. And they just like, well, no, we're full on roster. We had to cut 5 people to even get to this roster. So they were like, all right. I was like, all right, okay. I was like, I came home. I had no discouragement from that. I just had this feeling I was still gonna make it. Even if I was like, they could add me on in the middle. I mean, I remember having this phone call. I was like, my dad was like kind of upset with it, you know, upset they're not having it. And I was like, I'm faith in Hashem. I know, you know, if it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. And I told him, I said, you know, they might just, I don't know what made me say it, but I said, I have a feeling they might just add me on in the middle of the season. And I came back to College Station. My friend and I continued to practice on the field. I went to the coach's radio show because it started back up for the season. And I went up. I was like, you know, what happened with the tryouts? And I think his assistant, he told his assistant to give me the to talk to the associate director. Great guy. We exchanged numbers, and he tells me, you know, he tells me, if any guys quit, I'll give you a call. And I leaned in and I told him, you know, I have a chance to make history here, because I could be the first Orthodox Jew in college football or something like that. He's like, all right, well, you gotta make it happen. And I would come back every week, look at the coach, shake his hand, say, no, I'm working. Just let you know. I go shake this associate director's hand, and I leave, because I started teaching a Gemara class at my house the same night as the radio show. So I would just go for like 10 minutes to the radio show to say hi and go. And eventually I became friends with some of the ladies at the radio show, and they would always call the coach and be like, get his attention, tell him that I was, you know, at the radio show.
I mean, like, it's like clear, like this took a village, right? And so
yeah,
it's I mean, the story is blowing us away. I just can't. I can't, like, the amount of light, inspiration, right? Like, again, your focus, your positivity is just tremendous. We have to figure out how to get this, because I have questions coming in. You don't understand how many people are texting me. We have questions coming in on the chat, like, why did he work so hard and do this stuff? So I this is not going to be the last time we're going to talk to you here. We need to get you back, but also want to be respectful of time. I'm sure you're going through finals. But, you know, when we have downtime and you have downtime on the break,
absolutely.
I'm
sure.
going to reach back out to you. But Sam, this is I can't thank you enough for the time. It is tremendous. The story of perseverance, the story, like, again, putting Hashem at the forefront and the way you really, called out. And again, there's just so much here that is just mind blowing. And just, again, I have young kids. Right after this, I'm going to be talking to my daughter and be like, you got to watch this, right? Like, just listen to this story, because it's about how you just, like, again, set your goals. The idea of, right, you got to think of yourself as doing it before you get it. I can't thank you enough. And we are going to talk soon. I really appreciate it. And I don't know what's next, but we wish you the best of luck.
Sure.
And we'll talk really, really soon. What's the last thing you want to say to our guests, our sort of our audience here? Like, what's the big takeaway as they follow your story?
Should I finish the last bit, because it's like
finish the last bit. Hit it hard.
So I finally, it's a week of Yom Kippur, and I have been praying to Hashem a lot about this. There's whole journey. The whole tefillah played a huge part, and just really faith and connection to Hashem. And I was sitting in my room studying for an economics test, and I got a text, and it said, like, director, can you come down to the football facility? And then my heart is pounding for an hour and a half. I said, yeah, sure. I said, yeah, what time? I didn't get an answer, because then an hour later, I was added to a chat with the trainers, and they said, hey, Sam, we need to get you down here to get all your stuff in. We're really excited to have you on the team. And I was like, I was a little bit shocked, obviously. And that's what happened. So there was no tryout required.
I just, again, putting yourself, the amount of things that had to go, I mean, like, just thinking about hashkacha, right? Like, the amount of things that had to go right, the connections that had to happen at the time, your perseverance, right? You talk about, right, the effort and capabilities, right? Sometimes one thing that somebody told me, which stuck with me all the time, is a lot of times we think that we don't, like, we think about the capabilities, right? And we don't, we think about what we have to do, and we think about our ability. And sometimes we just have to think about what we want to do, and Hashem gives us the ability, right? We think, oh, we can't do this because we don't have that ability.
Absolutely.
We just have to think about our responsibility, and Hashem gives us that. Once we take on that responsibility, the way to get that ability. So that is really amazing. Want to hear more about, again, your family. We have here one of our players' parents who's just gonna talk to us in a little bit. But wishing you the best, Sam, and we're gonna keep following your story.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, Sam. Keep being a force for good.
Really awesome.
Thank you guys. Absolutely.
Peace. What a God! I just, like, blown away. Keep that light, man.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
You too.
Wow. Just, blown away story. Coach Zucker.
All right, back to YU Max ball.
Thanks for having the patience with us. I mean, again, I can't. That story is just, it's just an incredible story.